me. I've brought a couple of books along. Let me put these down here. Oh, oh goodness gracious. Well, hello and welcome. Let's try this one more time. We've done 5 years of conversations based on the Christian life. Went back, remember, began with Jesus. We talked about the message he started being taken around the Aegean, the Mediterranean area by St. Paul. How this will play out in the communion of saints. And we took a look at one little aspect of the communion of saints. Remember, that was the mystics. And then last year we talked about the Nicene Creed. So what does Christianity profess? We did that in pretty good detail, as you'll recollect. I brought some books along. Always can't do without a whole bunch of good books. Oh, I've got 2 more that I need. And these, okay. These 2. Get the 2 more books. Can't have too many books. We'll deal with all of these as we go along, probably. Okay. So this year is going to be a little different, of course, because of all things, we are in the midst of a pandemic. And so our regular system, regular way of operating is going to have to be quite a bit different. So we'll do it like this. You've obviously already found your way here, so that's a big step. And we will talk about the various pieces that we have in a format that I think will be very amenable to all of us. We'll do more about that as we go along. I'll tell you more about how we will proceed with that. We'll begin with a short presentation, maybe a half hour long, and then you'll have the opportunity to look at that a few times, take some notes, and then on the following Sunday, before the 11 o'clock Mass, we'll meet for a half hour and we'll discuss the pieces that we are presenting today in this video. So, let's see. How should we begin a conversation? Because this year we're going to talk about love. How in the world should we talk about love? Well, if we went back to the 5th century BC, we'd run into old Socrates here, and he would begin by saying, define your terms. Okay, why not? Define our terms. How would we do that? With love, there are all kinds of different ideas about love and whatnot. How would we define our terms? Well, I thought, let's start with the dictionary. That's a novel idea. So I did. I got out Webster and took a look at the Webster dictionary. And Webster defines love as the assurance of affection. The assurance of affection. Guarantee. Guarantee of affection. Well, what's affection? Once again, Webster defines affection as tender attachment. Isn't that lovely? Tender attachment. How intimate, how personal, completely personal. So love then would be defined as the assurance of tender attachment. The assurance. Wow. We'll have to talk more about that, so hold on to that thought for just a moment. We'll come back to it. We have some great writers. In fact, one of the writers that I took down off the wall was St. Augustine in his Confessions. What does he have to say about all of this? Thomas Aquinas, in the 13th century, 1,000 years, 900 years after Augustine, will define love as willing the good of the other. Not yourself, not personal, but willing the good of the other. That's pretty stunning. Well, I mentioned Augustine. Let's see, what does he say? One of his most notable works, of course, are the Confessions. Well, confession to Augustine did not mean, bless me, Father, for I've sinned. It's been 150 years since my last confession. No, that's not what confession meant in these terms. Confession meant an opening up of yourself, a revealing of yourself, a sharing of yourself. Very internal, very intimate. So in the first book, in fact, in the first chapter, in the first lines of the first book of the Confessions, Augustine writes this: "Great are you, O Lord, and exceedingly worthy of praise. Your power is immense and your wisdom beyond reckoning. And so we humans, who are a due part of your creation, long to praise you. We also carry our mortality about with us, carry the evidence of our sin, and with it, the proof that you thwart the proud. You arouse us so that praising you may bring us joy, because you have made us and drawn us to yourself, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." You have drawn us to yourself, you have made us, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. Some translations will say our heart is restless until it lies at peace in you. What a fantastic notion. Once again, how completely intimate, made and called by God to this place of such love that our hearts only are at peace when in fact they are back with you. Oh, so we see Augustine, that short little definition by Aquinas, and we'll talk more about both of those fellows in subsequent conversations. But we can go way back. We can go back really to the time of Jesus. Just before the time of Jesus, for instance, old Marcus Tullius Cicero, sometimes referred to just as plain Tully, wrote quite a remarkable piece called De Amicitia, about friendship. Really, friendship. What did Otoli have to say about friendship? Well, here is how he defined friendship. I know you're going to want this in the Latin, so I'll give it to you in Latin first. Est autem amicitia nihil aliud nisi. That's a nice little phrase. Nihil aliud nisi means nothing other than. Nihil aliud nisi omnium rerum divinarum humanarumque, cum benevolentia et caritate consensio. Friendship, however, is nothing other than the consensio, the coming together, the unifying of all things divine and human with goodwill and love. All things human and divine. Goodwill and love. The word he uses for love here is caritas, not amor. Amor is a now love, a very personal love right here, but caritas is a much deeper love, a love that is much more intimate and transcending. We take the word charity, and in the very next sentence, old Tully continues in the next sentence by saying, and you know, it occurs to me that nothing except wisdom was a greater gift to mankind from the immortal gods. Wow. Friendship, that coming together, that blending, that unity of all things human and divine with goodwill and love. Nothing greater than that, except maybe wisdom, was a great gift from the immortal gods. Remarkable. And this from an old Roman Stoic. Well, there are different types of love. The Greeks identified three types of love. Philia, which is like a brotherly love, like friendship. Eros, from which we take the word erotic, which has to do with cupidity or sexual love. And then agape. Agape is self-giving love. When Jesus talks of love, for the most part, in what he says, he's talking agape. There's a few times when he says, and you are my friends, and I will call you my friends. In that case, he's talking philia. But there's one other love also that C.S. Lewis will talk about in his book, The Four Loves, and that is affection. We'll discuss this more when we get to Lewis down the road in subsequent conversations. How about that? Affection, friendship, sexual love, and truly self-giving, consuming love. And on top of this, you can add flavors of love. Really, flavors. I don't know. I'm a big vanilla stuff on it fan myself, but different flavors. For instance, there is need love. And then there is gift love. Need love, gift love. We all, from time to time, as we'll see shortly in our beginnings, especially of our lives, are pretty much all need love. The hope is that as we go along in life, we will develop, and not everybody does. This is, I think, maybe the sad part. But we will develop a point, a place within us of gift love, where we are giving. As we go through life, perhaps there's less and less of the need love and more of the gift love within ourselves as we grow and become fuller beings. But you know, I'm really starting at the end, and we can't do that. We have to start at the beginning. We have to begin in the whole process of love. Before I do that, I should share one thing with you, once again talking about C.S. Lewis, from his book, The Four Loves, which I said we'll talk about a little later on. He has this. He's talking, this is toward the end of the book, and he is going to share with his readers many thoughts of his own, ideas of his own, things that he has pulled together in talking about the immense love of God. And he writes this: the humblest of us in a state of grace can have some knowledge by acquaintance, some tasting of love himself. Again, he's talking to God. But man, even at his highest sanctity and intelligence, has no direct knowledge about the ultimate being. Only analogies. We cannot see light, but through light we can see things. Statements about God are extrapolations from the knowledge of other things, which the divine illumination enables us to know. I labor these deprecations because, in what follows, my efforts to be clear and not intolerably lengthy may suggest a confidence which I by no means feel. This is C.S. Lewis. I should be mad if I did. Take it as one man's reverie, almost one man's myth. If anything in it is useful to you, use it. If anything is not, never give it a second thought. Never give it a second thought. Let's share it together, using the pieces we find useful, and for the others, never giving them a second thought. I promised in the very title of this series, the title being, What's Love Got to Do with It? A Personal Journey. I promised a personal journey. So I will endeavor over these 10 conversations to, in fact, share myself with you. And ask that you do the same as we gather together and talk and whatnot, that we share each other's lives and concepts of love and loves themselves. I will do the best I can in that. And I shall begin in a very good place, which is at the beginning. We all, every human, we begin in great selfishness. Every infant, as child psychology tells us this, every infant begins by believing that everything outside of him or herself is a part of that person. In fact, this little infant is a part of everything that he or she experiences. And only gradually, this little being comes to understand that no, it is separate. It's separate from the rest of the world around it. It must provoke a little fear from time to time. Think about that in terms of the infants that you know or have known during your life. I wonder if there can be a little fear component in there. But at one point or another, hopefully, we come to understand that we are separate beings. And in the development of that process and that understanding of ours, we gradually come into a place of gift love rather than strictly need love. There are those who would say that the teenage years are the epitome of need love, hoping that when they go past that mode into adult life, it will become more of a gift love than need love. But at some point, and unfortunately not everybody does this, but at some point, we must come to the point of not just being loved and loving others, but of falling deeply in love. In my own life, I must admit, I went for a long, long time in really self-serving love. What will I do today? What will I do tomorrow? What will I do when I grow up? What kind of occupation should I do? What will I do? All these things with myself. But eventually, I was able to come to the point of falling deeply in love. We might even say that in this falling deeply in love, our hearts are ambushed. A spiritual director friend of mine once said, who gave God the ability to ambush my heart? Or even more profoundly, who gave my heart permission to be ambushed? Who gave my heart permission? Ambushed by love is very often something that occurs that you never saw coming. So I've said I've lived a very personal, needing life, very self-centered, up until the ripe old age of all things, 28. No, 30. Really, 30 years old. So what happened to me at age 30? At age 30, my first daughter was born. Ambushed by love. Never saw it coming. I was completely overwhelmed. Frankly, then and through all the years since, I was ambushed by love. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget holding this fantastic little person in my hands. I remember lying in the bathtub with her on my chest, splashing water and giggling together. Really. Just holding her, looking at her, holding her up and laughing together, giggling together. Wow. But here's the other remarkable thing about falling in love, having your heart ambushed. Once that happens to you, it can happen again. It's not a one-time thing. It's not hierarchical. It's repeatable. And in my own life, I'm telling you, it was repeatable. I had more children. Each one of them, a new ambush. Oh. I fell madly in love and was ambushed by my dear wife. Ambushed. Didn't see it coming. Wow. Never forget it. Never forget it. But in the same mode, we have to recognize that love can be a bit scary. In fact, the title that I've chosen for the series, What's Love Got to Do with It, is of course based on a song by Tina Turner, who was living a very abused life. In fact, in one place within the song, it says, this is scary. This is scary. My goodness. So it can be scary. And what we also find, excuse me, in deep, true, ambushed love, we also find that there is great comfort and warmth and joy in coming to that point in our lives. Wow. There is also a deep correlation between love and beauty. And we'll talk more about this later. In fact, in our conversations coming up, we will go back to our definitions of love. Love, this willing the good for the other. Love, this our hearts are made for you and will not be at rest until they do rest in you. Even old Cicero, the coming together of all things human and divine in goodwill and love. We'll come back to those pieces as we go along over these next number of weeks. But what's really important for us also is to be able to share these notions with one another and our ideas. And I really ask you to do that as well. So after each of these conversations that we have, I will offer notes and quotes. The notes will be things that I'll ask you to consider and prepare for our conversations on Sundays. Because after you have seen this piece, you can go back and take a look at this a couple of times if you want, whatever you want to do. And then on Sunday before Mass, 10:15, remember, we'll meet, go to the parish website, and we'll meet on a Zoom connection, and we will discuss these things. We'll throw them back and forth, we'll ask questions, bring your comments. So I want you to do some writing about these pieces as well, so you'll remember that when we come down to our conversations. So first of all, where did love first appear to you? Maybe even more importantly in some ways, when did you first truly fall in love? When was your heart ambushed? Can you go back to that? Write it down. Write some of these things down. Also, can you imagine any synonyms for love? Synonym for love. What might that be? Think about that, because it'll require you to think on a larger term, larger scope as well. And we'll discuss all of these pieces on Sunday in our conversation. I'm looking forward to that a lot. That'll be very good. So there's some notes for today. I'll have others for you as we go along over the 10-week span. But then I also said quotes. Well, one of the books that we're going to use in my stack of books here, one of the books that we're going to use is absolutely wonderful on this whole notion of love, as it shows up in everything that is. And it's a book by Elizabeth Johnson entitled Ask the Beasts. Ask the Beasts. Darwin and the God of Love. Wow, there's something you don't hear connected all the time. Elizabeth Johnson believes it. I had the very good fortune to have a online conversation with Elizabeth Johnson not too long ago. And she sent me a series of quotes. And these are quotes from young people age 4 to 8. And let me just tell you what she said. She said perhaps we could use these in our conversations to spice things up a bit. But here's what happened. A group of professional people posed this question to a group of 4 to 8-year-olds. And the question, what does love mean? The answers they got were broader, deeper, and more profound than anyone could ever have imagined. So Elizabeth says, see what you think. Here's Jessica, age 7. When my grandmother got arthritis, she could not bend over and paint her toenails anymore. So my grandfather does it for her all the time, even when his hands got arthritis too. What does love mean? What does love mean? And note that you recognize it in an outward expression. Throughout these quotes from these children, Notice that love is transactional. It's outside. That's how it's recognized. It's outside. Remember Aquinas, willing the good of the other. Here's Rebecca, age 8. When someone loves you, the way they say your name is different. You just know that your name is safe in their mouth. Safe in their mouth. Wow. Wow. Whew. Well, I'll look forward to talking with you on Sunday. And next week, we'll take a look at love, as I'm going to say, in the really big picture. And we'll see how that turns out. Did you ever play marbles as a kid? I used to play marbles. I remember having a bag of marbles. So did you, have you ever done that? Did you have a set of marbles of your own? Still have your marbles? My wife, of course, said that I lost my marbles long ago, but that's a topic for another time. Maybe you had a shooter. Remember the shooters? Big marble, that you were able to do that. Well, if you happen to have some marbles left, or if you happen to have your shooter left, bring it with you next week. We're going to talk about marbles next week as well as the big picture. I look forward to that a lot and to seeing you then. In the meantime, I hope all is well and that you are doing well through this whole pandemic experience that we're going through, that you are brave and courageous and that you're doing all the right things. And I'll look forward very much to talking with you next week. Actually talking with you on Sunday and then seeing you again in one of these videos next week. And remember, my prayer for you and my hope for you is that your name will be safe in the mouths of those who love you, and vice versa. Blessings always.